Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. His conquest fleet had traveled far to reach this system, following reports from scout ships about a world called Earth. The reports described a primitive species that had barely reached their own moon, perfect targets for the Zephyrian Empire's expansion. The Admiral's green skin gleamed under the bridge lights as he studied the tactical display. 100 ships followed, his flagship in perfect formation. Each vessel carried enough firepower to level entire continents. This would be conquest number 48 for the Empire, and Kethvar expected it to go like all the others. His communications officer looked up from her station. "Admiral, we detect one ship leaving the planet's orbital space. It appears to be moving toward us." Kethvar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "One ship? These humans must be even more primitive than our scouts reported." "What kind of vessel is it?" The officer studied her readings. "It's small, sir, about the size of our escort craft. The design is strange, though. We've never seen anything like it." The Admiral waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Probably their best warship, coming to surrender before we demonstrate our power. It's almost disappointing when they give up so easily." Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the USS Liberty and watched the alien fleet approach on his tactical screen. The ships were massive, each one dwarfing his vessel by 10 to 1. Their formation suggested they were used to intimidating opponents rather than fighting them. That was interesting. "Amy, what do you make of their weapon signatures?" Morrison asked his tactical officer. Lieutenant Amy Carter studied her displays carefully. "Energy-based weapons, Captain. Plasma cannons from the look of it. Their shields seem designed to stop similar weapons. They're clustering their ships pretty close together." Morrison nodded. The aliens were using formation tactics that assumed their enemies would scatter and run when faced with overwhelming numbers. They had no idea what they were really facing. "Henry, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have first contact with what appears to be a hostile force. Request permission to engage if necessary. Dr. Henry Walsh, serving as communications." Officer looked up from his station. "Message sent, Captain. Earth Command responds that you have full authority to protect Earth and humanity's interests." The alien fleet continued its approach, and Morrison could see they were trying to surround his single ship. Standard intimidation tactics. He almost felt sorry for them. Admiral Kethvar watched the human ship maneuver and felt pleased with its predictable behavior. The vessel was trying to keep distance from his fleet, exactly what he expected from a frightened enemy. "Time to begin the standard procedure. Open communications to the human ship and their planet," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Kethvar in his ceremonial armor. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship displayed the power and technology of the Zephyrian Empire. This visual usually made primitive species surrender immediately. "I am Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire," he announced in the common galactic tongue that his computers would translate. "Your world has been selected for integration into our empire. You have 6 hours to surrender completely. Lay down all weapons, power down all military installations, and prepare to receive our occupation forces. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your planet and species." He cut the transmission and settled back in his command chair. 6 hours was generous. Most species surrendered within 1 hour once they saw the size of his fleet. Morrison listened to the alien ultimatum with growing interest rather than fear. These Zephyrians seemed to expect immediate surrender based on a show of force. They had no idea that humanity's military technology developed through centuries of fighting other humans who were just as smart and determined as they were. Lisa, "How are our engines?" he called to his engineering officer. Commander Lisa Bennett's voice came through the comm system. "Running at peak efficiency, Captain. All systems show green across the board." "Good. Pete, I need everything you can tell me about their fleet composition and tactics." Commander Pete Rogers had been studying the alien ships since they first appeared on sensors. "They're using a standard intimidation formation, Captain, designed to look impressive rather than fight effectively. Their weapons appear optimized for destroying planetary targets rather than engaging other warships. I'm seeing a lot of vulnerabilities in their positioning." Morrison smiled. These aliens had conquered 47 worlds, but apparently none of those worlds had been defended by opponents who understood modern warfare principles. "Amy, begin target analysis on their flagship. I want to know exactly where to place our shots for maximum effect without causing unnecessary casualties." The tactical officer's hands flew over her console. "Target solutions ready, Captain. Their shields seem designed to stop energy weapons, not kinetic projectiles. A single railgun round should penetrate completely." Morrison opened a channel to the alien flagship. He wanted to give them one chance to reconsider their approach. Admiral Kethvar received the return transmission from the human ship with amusement. The human captain appeared on his screen, looking remarkably calm for someone facing destruction. This Morrison creature even wore what appeared to be a formal military uniform. "Admiral Kethvar," the human said in perfect galactic common, "I appreciate your offer, but I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We won't be surrendering today. However, I'd like to suggest that you reconsider your approach to our system." The Admiral's amusement grew. This human actually thought it could negotiate from a position of weakness. How entertaining. "Captain Morrison," Kethvar replied, enjoying the human's shocked expression at hearing his name. "Your primitive scanning technology cannot have told you our true strength. We have conquered 47 worlds. Your single ship cannot stand against our fleet." Morrison's expression didn't change. "Admiral, you're absolutely right that we've been scanning your fleet. We've learned quite a lot about your capabilities. That's why I'm suggesting you might want to withdraw while you still can." The human's calm confidence was beginning to irritate. "Kethvar, time to demonstrate why no species had ever successfully resisted the Zephyrian Empire. You have 5 hours and 57 minutes remaining," the Admiral said coldly. "I suggest you use that time to convince your people to surrender. The alternative is complete annihilation." Morrison nodded politely. "I understand your position, Admiral. Please understand mine as well. Those 5 hours and 57 minutes give us time to prepare for what's coming. I strongly recommend you use that time to reconsider your options." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar staring at a blank screen. The human's confidence was unsettling, but impossible to justify. One ship against 100 was not a battle. It was execution. Morrison turned to his crew as the alien transmission ended. Every officer on the bridge looked calm and professional, exactly what he expected from humanity's finest. They understood what they were facing, and they understood what they represented. "All stations, begin final preparations," Morrison ordered. "Maria, have your Marines ready for possible boarding actions, though I don't think it'll come to that." Sergeant Maria Gonzalez acknowledged the order from her station. "Marines are locked and loaded, Captain, ready for whatever these aliens think they can do." Morrison looked at the tactical display one more time. The alien fleet had positioned itself perfectly for what was coming. They had no idea that humanity had spent centuries perfecting the art of warfare against opponents just as intelligent and determined as themselves. These Zephyrians were about to learn why that made all The difference in the galaxy. The 6 hours passed slowly for Admiral Kethvar as he waited for the expected surrender message from Earth. His officers reported no change in the human planet's defensive posture. No weapons were being powered down. No white flags appeared in orbit, and no panicked transmissions begged for mercy. The single human warship continued its slow orbit around the alien fleet, apparently studying them. Kethvar found the humans' behavior puzzling but not concerning. Some species needed to see actual destruction before they accepted reality. The Admiral had destroyed entire cities to convince stubborn populations in the past. If necessary, he would do so again. Time remaining, he asked his communications. "Officer, 17 minutes until deadline, Admiral." Kethvar nodded and activated the fleet-wide communications channel. "All ships, prepare weapons for demonstration firing. Target the third planet's largest population centers. We'll show these humans what resistance costs." Around the fleet, massive plasma cannons began charging. The energy buildup would be visible to anyone with basic sensors. Most species surrendered the moment they detected weapons powering up. Captain Morrison watched the alien weapons charge and felt a cold anger settle in his stomach. These creatures weren't just threatening Earth. They were preparing to murder millions of innocent people. To make a point, that changed everything. "Amy, are you tracking their weapon targeting?" Lieutenant Amy Carter's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Yes, Captain. They're aiming at New York, London, Tokyo, and Mumbai. Combined population of those targets is over 60 million people." Morrison's jaw tightened. The aliens weren't military professionals. They were genocidal conquerors who murdered civilians to force surrender. Any sympathy he might have felt for them vanished completely. "All stations, battle stations," Morrison ordered quietly. These people just crossed a line they shouldn't have crossed. The bridge lighting shifted to combat mode as the Liberty's crew prepared for war. Every officer knew what those targeting solutions meant. The aliens weren't planning a military demonstration. They were planning mass murder. "Pete, send a priority message to Earth Command. Tell them the aliens are targeting civilian population centers. Request immediate authorization for full engagement." The response came back within seconds. Earth Command's message was brief and clear. "Authorization granted. Protect Earth by any means necessary." Admiral Kethvar watched his chronometer count down the final minutes. When the deadline arrived with no surrender message, he felt a familiar satisfaction. Another species would learn why resistance to the Zephyrian Empire was futile. "Communications, broadcast to the human ship and planet," he ordered. The transmission opened to show Kethvar standing before his tactical display. The charging weapons were clearly visible behind him, their targeting. Data highlighting Earth's major cities. "Captain Morrison, people of Earth, your time has expired. Since you have chosen resistance over wisdom, we will now demonstrate the cost of defying the Zephyrian Empire. Watch your cities burn and know that this destruction could have been avoided," he gestured to his weapons officer. "Fire demonstration rounds at the designated targets." The order had barely left his mouth when something impossible happened. The human ship, which had been maintaining a respectful distance from the Zephyrian fleet, suddenly accelerated directly toward his flagship. The acceleration was impossible. No ship that size should be able to move that fast. "Evasive maneuvers," Kethvar shouted. But the Liberty was already past his outer ships and driving straight at his flagship's bridge. At the last possible second, the human ship pulled up and over the flagship, so close that Kethvar could see the individual hull, plates on its underside. The maneuver was impossible. No species in the galaxy had technology that allowed such precise, high-speed maneuvering. The demonstration plasma rounds fired as ordered, but they struck empty space where the human ship had been moments before. The Liberty's impossible acceleration had carried it completely clear of the firing solution. Morrison's voice came over the communications channel, still unnaturally calm. "Admiral, I tried to warn you. You just threatened to murder 60 million innocent people. That was a mistake." Kethvar stared at his tactical display in confusion. The human ship's acceleration curve showed impossible performance. His sensors had to be malfunctioning. "Target that ship," he ordered. "All vessels, concentrate fire on the human warship." 50 plasma cannons swiveled toward the Liberty and fired simultaneously. The space around the human ship filled with superheated. Death as enough energy to destroy a continent focused on a single target. When the plasma cleared, Kethvar expected to see debris and vapor. Instead, the Liberty emerged from the energy storm completely undamaged. Its hull showed no signs of damage, no shield failures, no system overloads. The concentrated firepower of 50 warships had accomplished nothing. Morrison's voice came through the static of cooling plasma. "Admiral, that was impressive. Now let me show you what humans consider an adequate response." The Liberty's railgun fired once. The projectile was invisible to Zephyrian sensors, moving too fast for their tracking systems to follow. Kethvar's first indication that his fleet was under attack came when the heavy cruiser Stellar Conquest simply exploded. The ship went from fully operational to expanding debris in less than a second. Whatever the humans had fired passed completely. Through the cruiser's shields as if they weren't there, punched through its armor like it was made of paper, and detonated the reactor core. "Impossible," Kethvar whispered, staring at the expanding fireball that had been one of his most powerful ships. His tactical officer's voice shook with disbelief. "Admiral, sensors show the human weapon was a solid projectile moving at 12% of light speed. Our shields aren't designed to stop kinetic weapons at those velocities." Dr. Henry Walsh's voice came over the communications channel, speaking with the tone of a patient teacher. "Admiral Kethvar, allow me to explain something about human military technology. We never developed energy weapons because our wars were fought against other humans. We learned to build kinetic weapons that could penetrate any defense because our enemies were just as smart as we were." Amy Carter's targeting system locked onto another Zephyrian ship. "Admiral, your plasma weapons are designed to intimidate primitive species into surrender. They're useless against shields built to stop human weapons. Our weapons, however, were designed to kill humans who were shooting back with equal determination." Morrison's voice cut through the confusion on the alien bridge. "Admiral, I'm going to disable your weapon systems now. I suggest you order your crews to abandon any ideas about continuing this fight." The Liberty's second railgun round struck the plasma cannon array on Kethvar's flagship. The projectiles severed the weapons from the ship without penetrating the hull, leaving the flagship defensively intact, but completely unable to return fire. Around the fleet, Zephyrian crews watched in growing horror as the single human ship systematically destroyed their weapons. Each shot was perfectly placed, disabling rather than destroying, but demonstrating accuracy that should have been impossible at such range. Commander Pete Rogers broadcast to the entire alien fleet. "Zephyrian vessels, this is the human warship, Liberty. Your weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. Our weapons can destroy your ships faster than you can surrender. I recommend you consider your options carefully Admiral Kethvar realized with growing dread that everything his empire believed about warfare was wrong. They had built their military to intimidate species that couldn't fight back effectively. The humans had built their military to fight other humans who were trying to kill them with equal skill and determination. The difference was becoming tragically obvious as his fleet lost the ability to defend itself ship by ship. The humans weren't just winning this battle. They were demonstrating that the Zephyrian Empire's entire military philosophy was fundamentally flawed. Kethvar looked around his bridge at officers who had never faced an enemy that could fight back effectively. For the first time in his career, he began to understand what real fear felt like. Admiral Kethvar watched in growing panic as the Liberty systematically destroyed the weapons of ship after ship in his fleet. Each railgun round struck with impossible precision, disabling plasma cannons and missile launchers without breaching ship hulls. The human captain was deliberately showing mercy while demonstrating absolute superiority. The Admiral's tactical officer reported the growing disaster. "Sir, we've lost weapons on 37 ships. The human vessel is maintaining perfect accuracy at ranges our best gunners couldn't match. Our return fire isn't even scratching their shields." Kethvar struggled to understand what was happening. His empire had conquered 47 worlds using these same tactics and weapons. How could one primitive human ship make his entire fleet look helpless? "All ships ramming speed," he ordered desperately. "If we can't shoot them, we'll ram them." The order went out across the fleet, and 20 Zephyrian warships accelerated toward the Liberty at maximum velocity. Surely the human ship couldn't avoid that many attackers at once. Captain Morrison watched the alien ships begin their ramming runs and shook his head sadly. These creatures still didn't understand what they were facing. "Amy, disable their engines instead of their weapons. Let's make sure nobody gets hurt unnecessarily." Lieutenant Amy Carter adjusted her targeting parameters. "Switching to engine targeting, Captain. These aliens really don't learn, do they?" The Liberty's railgun spoke again and again, each shot perfectly placed to destroy engine systems without killing crew members. The ramming ships lost power and drifted helplessly through space, their momentum carrying them past their target. Harmlessly, Morrison opened communications to the alien fleet again. "Admiral Kethvar, your crews are going to die if you keep ordering them to attack us. We're trying not to kill anyone, but we will defend ourselves if necessary." Kethvar's communications officer looked up from her station with fear in her large eyes. "Admiral, the human ship is receiving communications from other vessels. Long-range sensors detect 17 more human ships approaching our position." The Admiral felt his breathing become difficult. If one human ship could destroy his entire fleet, what would 18 of them do? Dr. Henry Walsh's voice came over the communications channel with more technical information. "Admiral, you should know that the Liberty is a patrol vessel, not a ship of the line. The vessels approaching are our heavy cruisers and battleships. They're significantly more powerful than we are." Morrison continued the explanation in his calm, professional voice. "Admiral, humanity detected your fleet 3 weeks ago. We've been studying your technology and tactics since then. We allowed you to approach Earth because we wanted to understand your intentions." Commander Lisa Bennett added her engineering perspective. "Your plasma weapons are about 50 years behind current human defensive technology. Our shields were designed to stop weapons much more powerful than anything your fleet carries." The implications hit Kethvar like a physical blow. The humans had known about his fleet for weeks. They could have attacked while his ships were still days away from Earth. They could have destroyed his entire force before it ever had a chance to threaten their planet. Instead, they had allowed this encounter to happen. They had let him broadcast threats and ultimatums while they studied his forces like scientists examining insects. Sergeant Maria Gonzalez's voice joined the explanation. Admiral, human military doctrine assumes our enemies are at least as smart as we are. We plan for opponents who adapt, who learn, who fight back with everything they have. Your tactics work on species that can't fight back. They don't work on species that can. The Liberty continued its methodical disabling of Zephyrian ships, while more human vessels appeared on long-range sensors. Kethvar realized his fleet was completely helpless. Worse, the humans were demonstrating their superiority. Without even trying hard, Commander Pete Rogers broadcast tactical analysis to the alien fleet. Zephyrian vessels, your formation assumes enemies will scatter when faced with superior numbers. Human enemies don't scatter, they adapt. Your weapons assume enemies can't return effective fire. Human enemies always shoot back. Morrison's voice cut through the growing despair on the alien ships. Admiral, the fundamental problem with your military philosophy is that you've never faced an enemy that could fight back effectively. Every species you've conquered surrendered because they couldn't match your firepower. Amy Carter provided the crushing tactical assessment. Humans developed our military technology fighting other humans for thousands of years. Every weapon we built had to work against opponents who were trying to kill us with equally advanced weapons. That makes our technology much more effective than yours. The Liberty moved through the alien formation like a dancer, avoiding desperate ramming attempts and disabling ship after ship with casual precision. Kethvar watched his proud conquest fleet reduced to helpless drifting hulks by a single enemy vessel. His communications officer reported more bad news. Admiral, the approaching human ships are broadcasting their classifications. 3 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, 5 destroyers, and 3 support vessels. Each one appears to be more heavily armed than our flagship. Dr. Henry Walsh provided more disturbing information. Admiral, you should also know that Earth's orbital defense platforms have been tracking your fleet since you entered our solar system. Each platform carries enough firepower to destroy multiple ships. We have 47 platforms currently operational. Morrison continued the explanation. Admiral, we're showing you all this not to be cruel, but to help you understand the situation. Your empire has encountered something it's never faced before. A species that developed advanced military technology through constant warfare with equally intelligent opponents. The Liberty's weapons fell silent as the last Zephyrian ship lost its ability to fight. The entire conquest fleet drifted helplessly in space, completely at the mercy of a single human patrol vessel. Kethvar looked around his bridge at officers who had never experienced defeat. Their confident expressions had been replaced by shock and growing fear. Everything they believed about Zephyrian superiority was being destroyed along with their weapons. Admiral, his tactical officer whispered, "What do we do now?" For the first time in his military career, Kethvar had no answer. The Zephyrian Empire's entire expansion had been built on the assumption that they would always face weaker opponents. Now they faced a species that was demonstrably stronger, and he had no idea how to respond. Morrison's voice came over the communications channel one more time, still calm and professional despite having just defeated an entire conquest fleet. Single-handedly, Admiral Kethvar, I think it's time we had a serious conversation about your empire's future. The approaching human ships will be here in 6 hours. I suggest we use that time productively. Admiral Kethvar stared at the tactical display showing his disabled fleet, scattered around the human ship like broken toys. 6 hours until more human warships arrived, and he still couldn't comprehend how completely his forces had been defeated. The Liberty moved slowly through the debris field of disabled Zephyrian vessels, apparently scanning each ship for damage. Morrison's voice came over the fleet-wide communications channel, addressing all the alien crews directly rather than just their commanders. Zephyrian personnel, this is Captain Morrison of the human vessel Liberty. I want to speak with all of you, not just your officers. Across the fleet, ordinary Zephyrian crew members listened in shock as the human captain bypassed their command structure entirely. No enemy had ever addressed them as individuals rather than parts of a military machine. I want you to understand what just happened here, Morrison continued. Your empire sent you to conquer what you believed was a primitive world. Instead, you encountered a species that has been fighting wars for thousands of years. Not wars of conquest against helpless opponents, but wars of survival against enemies just as determined and intelligent as ourselves. Dr. Henry Walsh added historical context that left Zephyrian crews stunned. In human history, we have fought over resources, territory, ideology, and survival. Each war forced us to develop better weapons, better tactics, and better technology, because our enemies were doing the same thing. This constant military evolution is why our weapons work so well against yours. Commander Pete Rogers provided intelligence analysis that shattered Zephyrian assumptions about human society. We've been monitoring your communications since you entered our solar system. Your empire has conquered 47 worlds in the past century. Impressive expansion rate. Humanity fought 47 major wars in the past century alone. Just among ourselves. The implications horrified Admiral Kethvar. Humans fought constant wars against their own species while simultaneously developing space travel and advanced technology. The Zephyrian Empire expanded by overwhelming primitive opponents. Humans expanded by learning to fight increasingly dangerous enemies. Lieutenant Amy Carter shared tactical analysis that explained the one-sided battle. Your weapons and tactics are optimized for fighting opponents who can't effectively resist. Our weapons and tactics are optimized for fighting opponents who are trying to kill us with weapons just as advanced as our own. That's why this battle went the way it did. Morrison opened a direct communication channel to Kethvar's flagship. The human captain appeared on the main screen, still wearing his formal uniform and speaking in the same calm, professional tone he had maintained throughout the battle. Admiral, I need you to understand something important. Humanity didn't develop advanced military technology because we're naturally violent. We developed it because we had to. Every human nation knew that their neighbors had access to the same resources, the same intelligence, and the same determination they did. The concept was alien to Zephyrian thinking. Their empire had always been the strongest force in any conflict. They had never faced opponents with comparable resources and capabilities. Dr. Henry Walsh continued the explanation. Admiral, your empire conquered species that couldn't fight back effectively. That's not warfare, that's execution. Humans learned warfare by fighting other humans who shot back with equal skill and determination. Commander Lisa Bennett provided engineering details that illustrated the fundamental differences between human and Zephyrian technology. Your plasma weapons are excellent for destroying planetary installations and intimidating primitive spacecraft. Our railguns are designed to penetrate defenses built by people who know exactly how railguns work. The Liberty continued its patrol around the disabled alien fleet while human reinforcements approached. Kethvar watched the approaching ships on long-range sensors and realized each one was larger and more heavily armed than the patrol vessel that had just destroyed his fleet. Sergeant Maria Gonzalez explained human military philosophy in terms that shocked the alien crews. In human military training, we assume every enemy is at least as smart as we are, at least as well armed as we are, and at least as determined to win as we are. We prepare for opponents who will use our own tactics against us. Morrison addressed the wider implications of the encounter. Admiral, your Empire's expansion was based on encountering species that couldn't match your military capabilities. That worked for 47 conquests. It failed completely when you encountered a species that had better military capabilities than you do. The first of the human reinforcements appeared on visual sensors, and Kethvar felt his last hopes for salvaging the situation disappear. The approaching battleship was 3 times the size of his flagship and bristled with weapons systems he didn't recognize. Commander Pete Rogers provided more disturbing intelligence. Admiral, we've been analyzing your Empire's expansion pattern. You consistently target systems that can't mount effective resistance. You avoid regions where spacefaring species might have advanced military technology. Amy Carter added tactical assessment that explained why Zephyrian expansion had been so successful until now. Your strategy works perfectly against opponents who can't fight back. It's completely useless against opponents who can. You've been lucky that you never encountered a species like humanity before. Dr. Henry Walsh delivered the final blow to Zephyrian confidence. Admiral, based on our analysis of your technology and tactics, there are probably dozens of species in this galaxy that could defeat your Empire just as easily as we did. You've been expanding through the weakest regions of space. Morrison's voice carried a note of sympathy as he explained the reality of their situation. Admiral, your Empire has been living in a bubble of false superiority. You've conquered worlds that couldn't resist conquest. You've never faced opponents who could match your capabilities. The implications were staggering. The Zephyrian Empire's entire military philosophy was based on fighting opponents who couldn't fight back effectively. They had no doctrine for facing equals, no experience with real warfare, and no technology designed to overcome advanced defenses. Kethvar looked around his bridge at officers who were beginning to understand the magnitude of their defeat. They hadn't just lost a battle. They had discovered that their entire empire was built on a foundation of military weakness disguised as strength. Admiral, Morrison continued, the good news is that this doesn't have to be the end for your empire, but it does mean you need to fundamentally change how you interact with other species in the galaxy. The human captain paused to let that sink in before continuing. The Zephyrian Empire has a choice. You can continue trying to expand through conquest and eventually encounter species that will destroy you completely, or you can learn to coexist with other species as equals. Kethvar realized he was facing the most important decision in his empire's history. Everything they had believed about their place in the galaxy had been proven wrong in the span of a few hours. The question now was whether they could adapt quickly enough to survive. Morrison's final words carried both warning and hope. Admiral, the human fleet will be here in 4 hours. I suggest you use that time to decide what kind of future your empire wants to have. Admiral Kethvar watched the human fleet approach on his long-range sensors and felt something he had never experienced in his military career. Fear. Not fear of death in battle, which was honorable, but fear of complete irrelevance. Fear that everything he had believed about strength and conquest was meaningless. The human battleship Defender took position alongside the Liberty, dwarfing both the patrol vessel and Kethvar's flagship. Its weapon systems were unlike anything in Zephyrian technology databases. Where Zephyrian ships carried massive plasma cannons designed to intimidate, human ships carried compact railgun systems designed to kill. Morrison's voice came over the communications channel as more human ships arrived. Admiral Kethavar, I'd like you to meet Admiral Sarah Brooks of the Terran Defense Fleet. She'll be handling the formal aspects of this encounter. Admiral Brooks appeared on the screen, a gray-haired human woman whose calm expression somehow seemed more terrifying than any Zephyrian war mask. She studied Kethavar for a long moment before speaking. Admiral Kethavar, Captain Morrison has briefed me on your situation. Your empire has committed acts of war against humanity by threatening civilian populations and attempting to destroy our vessels. Under normal circumstances, this would result in the complete destruction of your fleet. Kethavar felt his throat constrict. The human admiral was stating facts, not making threats. Her tone suggested she was discussing routine military procedure, rather than the fate of thousands of Zephyrian lives. Brooks continued her assessment. However, Captain Morrison has recommended that we consider alternatives to total destruction. He believes your empire acted from ignorance rather than malice. I'm willing to consider that possibility. Dr. Henry Walsh provided context that made Kethavar's situation even more desperate. Admiral Kethavar, you should understand that the fleet currently surrounding you represents less than 2% of human military capabilities. Most of our forces are defending other systems or engaged in exploration missions. The revelation hit the Zephyrian command crew like a physical blow. The overwhelming force that had just destroyed their conquest fleet was essentially a minor patrol group by human standards. Commander Pete Rogers shared intelligence that shattered the last of Kethavar's illusions about Zephyrian power. Admiral, our analysis of your empire's military indicates you have approximately 12,000 warships spread across your territory. Humanity currently operates 16,000 warships, with production facilities capable of building more vessels, faster than you can. Lieutenant Amy Carter added tactical assessment that made resistance seem impossible. Your technology is approximately 50 years behind current human military systems. Your largest ships carry weapons equivalent to our patrol vessels. Your tactics are designed for fighting opponents who can't effectively resist. Admiral Brooks cut through the military analysis with simple strategic reality. Admiral Kethavar, your empire cannot defeat humanity in open warfare. Your weapons can't penetrate our defenses. Our weapons can destroy your ships faster than you can replace them. Any attempt at continued aggression would result in the complete elimination of Zephyrian military forces. Kethavar looked around his bridge at officers who were struggling to process the magnitude of their defeat. The Zephyrian Empire, which had seemed invincible just hours ago, was now revealed to be a minor power that had been attacking defenseless opponents. Morrison opened a direct communication to the Zephyrian flagship. Admiral, I want to be clear about something. Humanity doesn't want to destroy your empire. We'd prefer to find a peaceful solution to this situation, but that requires your empire to fundamentally change its behavior. The human captain paused before continuing. Your empire has been expanding through conquest and genocide for over a century. That has to stop, not just with humanity, but with all species. You need to learn to coexist with other civilizations as equals. Dr. Henry Walsh provided historical context that offered a potential path forward. Admiral, humanity went through a similar phase in our development. We fought constant wars for resources and territory. Eventually, we learned that cooperation was more effective than conquest. Your empire can make the same transition. Admiral Brooks outlined the terms that would determine the Zephyrian Empire's fate. Admiral Kethavar, Here are humanity's conditions for allowing your empire to continue existing. First, immediate cessation of all conquest activities. Second, withdrawal from all recently conquered worlds. Third, establishment of diplomatic relations with species you've previously subjugated. The conditions seemed impossible to Kethvar. The Zephyrian Empire's entire economy was based on extracting resources from conquered worlds. Their military was designed for expansion and intimidation. Their government structure assumed continued growth through conquest. Sergeant Maria Gonzalez provided a military perspective that was both encouraging and terrifying. Admiral, humanity is willing to help your empire transition to a peaceful coexistence model. But we're also prepared to enforce compliance if necessary. The choice is entirely yours. Commander Lisa Bennett offered technical assistance that highlighted human superiority while providing hope. We're willing to share some